simple shampoo and flowing warm water to keep your hair clean. When you wash your hair tonight, remember this moment's imagination. Remember those who washed their hair with eggs and vinegar. Remember those who endured stinking buns for entire months. Then give a silent thanks to the modern shampoo drain. Now, let's turn our attention to the most intimate layer. Remember this moment's imagination. Feel the softness of your cotton washed their hair against your skin right now. Remember those who endured stinking buns for entire months. Completely forget then give a silent thanks to the modern shampoo drain. Underwear was a realm of deception. Let's turn our attention to the most intimate layer. Remember this moment's imagination. Feel the softness of your washed their hair against your skin not a single piece. Remember those who endured stinking buns directly against their skin. Then give a silent thanks to the modern shampoo drain. Underwear was a realm. Imagine turn our attention to the most sensitive. Remember this joy after a day's labor. Feel the remember those who washed their hair. They had no basic protection. Remember those that endured as for the well-runs directly against their skin. Linen undergarments. But ordering changing often. Wearing one garment for a week was the norm. Sometimes even longer. Because laundry was a major undertaking. More on that later. Now, gently tug at the edge of your own undergarment. Feel its clean elasticity. For women back then, undergarments were suffocating like complex, layered upon layers, like a global ecosystem. Closest to the skin was the linen petticoat, likely unchanged for weeks. Then came the heavy woolen petticoat. Then came the bustle pads, designed to plump the hips. Finally, the elegant outer skirt. Rarely was any of this washed. Imagine it. On a sweltering summer day, a lady clad in 5 or even 7 layers of unwashed garments. Sweat trickling down her skin, absorbed by the heavy fabric, then fermenting there. For an entire day, would your skin begin to feel uncomfortable? Take a deep breath, relax. This is only imagination. And the corset. That was another nightmare. A tight lacing bodice made of hollow bone or steel stays, tightly binding the chest and abdomen, making breathing difficult, displacing internal organs. And that corset might have been cast down through to generations, stained with the sweat and body odor of its previous owner, yet still tightly bound around a new body. As for men, their trousers touched the skin directly, without the protection of underwear, walking streets littered with horse dung and sewage. By day's end, legs caked in grime, yet only cold water for a cursory wipe. Now, let's discuss that era's most ironic invention. Perfume. Take a gentle sniff. Sense the faint, pleasant fragrance that might linger in the room. By day's end, least neutral legs caked in grime. Now prepare to enter cold water for a cursory wipe scent. Now, Victorians knew that era's most ironic invention. Stench. Perfume. But their solution wasn't to eliminate the odor. Sense the faint, it was to pleasant fragrance that might linger in the room. By day's end, medical theory at the time held that disease was caused by miasma. That is, foul air and unpleasant odors. So their logic was simple. If you couldn't smell the stench, you wouldn't get sick. Thus, perfume became a life-saving remedy. The wealthy splurged on the most expensive fragrances. Roses, lavender, amber, musk. They drenched themselves in these potent scents. From hair to garments, from handkerchiefs to fans. They sought to erect a fragrant barrier against the foul odors of the outside world. But the problem was, they ignored the source of the smells. Hair washed for months. Undergarments unchanged for weeks. Walls perpetually damp. Skin caked with accumulated grime. None of these real odors vanished beneath the perfume's cover. They merely mingled with the fragrance, creating an even more peculiar stench. Imagine it. Rotten roses. Sour lavender. Spoiled amber. Did your nose involuntarily wrinkle? Relax, it's just imagination. The poor of their own coping methods. Unable to afford expensive French perfumes, they use cheap cologne instead, or gather wildflowers, dry them, and carry them on their person. Even so, sackets filled with herbs and spices. But these too fail to solve the problem. The excrement on the streets still ferments there. The sewage in the rivers still flows there. Night pots still sit stored beneath beds. Perfume is like sticking a pretty band-aid over an infected wound. It looks better, but in reality, the situation is worsening. The most ironic part? Some people develop allergies to the chemicals in cheap perfumes, and instead develop skin conditions. This requires even more perfume to mask, creating a perfect vicious cycle. Now, take another deep breath. Feel the purity of this air, a scent that doesn't try to hide anything. Noble's a blend of decay and fragrance, only cleanliness or at least authenticity. Tonight, whenever you use anything scented, be it shower gel or skincare, remember you're not masking anything. You're simply savoring pure delight. Now, let's push open that creaking door. Step onto the streets of London in 1850. First, take a deep breath of the air in your room. Feel its freshness, or at least its harmlessness. Now, completely forget that sensation. In Victorian London, the air had a taste so thick you could taste it on your tongue. Imagine 1 million people crammed into narrow alleys. No garbage collection system, no sewage treatment system, no environmental regulations. Every conceivable odor converged here, fermenting. First, human waste. Most homes lacked toilets, people used chamber pots. Then habitually, the contents were flung out the window. Potty emptying. Cries echoed constantly. But you couldn't always dodge in time. Next came the animals' contributions. London ran on horses. Thousands of horses pulled carriages, carts, and buses. Each horse produced about 35 pounds of manure daily. Do the math, 35 pounds multiplied by thousands of horses. This manure piled up on the streets, baking under the scorching sun. It was crushed by wheels untrampled by pedestrians. It turned into fine dust, dispersing into the air. Did your lungs just tighten? Relax, it's just imagination. Then there were the industrial gifts. Thousands of coal stoves burned day and night, spewing black smoke laced with the tang of sulfur. Factory chimneys belched exhaust without restraint, mixed with the blood minus chilled stench of slaughterhouses, the fishy stench of the market, and market refuse that never fully clears. All these odors blend within London's distinctive fog, day and forming night, a unique spewing black cocktail, smoke laced with the tang of sulfur. Crowded factory slums, chimneys belched, windows facing garbage minus filled backyards. They breathe this toxic air day and night. The wealthy were not spared either. Their mansions stood beside the same river. They breathed the same air. Only they could cover their noses and mouths with perfumed handkerchief, that no one could truly escape. Doctors observed a terrifying phenomenon. The average Londoner lived a full decade less than those in the countryside. Persistent coughs became known as the London cough. Lung disease ranked among the most common causes of death. Yet people felt powerless. They accepted it as the price of city life, the cost progress must exact. In Victorian London, everyone faced a daily reality: how to manage their own waste. First, imagine your living conditions. Most homes lacked toilets. There was no sewer system, no flushed toilets. You used a chamber pot or a bedpan placed beneath your bed. Each morning you had to deal with the night's accumulation. Now the choices presented themselves. If you lived on the ground floor, you might head to the backyard. There, a public privy awaited. A wooden shed over a deep pit shared by dozens of households. Or you could opt for the simpler route. Open the window and tip the chamber pot directly onto the street. Yes, this was daily life back then. A shout of potty emptying might or might not come. Pedestrians had to stay constantly alert. Is your brow furrowing already? Take a deep breath. This is just imagination. But where did all this waste end up? This is where the economics of excrement began. Specialized night soil workers labored after dark. They were called night soil men. The name sounds romantic, but the work was suffocating. They descended into cellars to empty overflowing cesspits, scooping human waste ladle by ladle into wooden buckets, loading it onto wheelbarrows, traversing the sleeping streets. Why work at night? Because the job was considered too filthy, unworthy of daylight. Can you imagine? A job so dirty that doing it in daylight was an offense. Now, where did this repulsive cargo go? Here's the strange twist. Human waste, at that time, was a precious commodity. Farmers needed fertilizer. and human excrement made excellent fertilizer. So the night soil workers transported this gold to suburban farms, selling it to farmers who needed fertilizer. Imagine this cycle. The vegetables you ate for dinner were grown using manure from London's slums, manure that might have carried cholera and typhoid bacteria, and so it returned to your dinner table. Does your stomach churn at the thought? Relax, it's just history. But this system began to collapse in the 1850s. London grew too fast, its population too large. The waste produced exceeded the night soil workers' capacity. Pit latrines overflowed constantly. Streets flooded with sewage. With every rainfall, some cold rivers of filth formed. They flowed freely through the streets. Worse still, many people simply abandoned the system. They simply emptied their chamber pots into the nearest gutter, and all gutters ultimately flowed into the Thames, London's primary source of drinking water. Thus began a dreadful cycle. People dumped sewage into the river, then drew water from that same river to drink, and wondered why they fell ill. Consider this obvious cause and effect relationship. Do you feel the weight on your shoulders? Let this tension leave with your exhalation. The government knew the problem existed. Scientists knew the problem existed. Anyone with a nose knew the problem existed. But no one could agree on a solution. Some advocated building more cesspits. Others proposed dumping all waste into the Thames, hoping the tide will carry it away. Still others believe we should learn to live with the stench. Until that infamous summer of 1858, known as the Great Stink, persistent heat caused the sewage in the Thames to ferment. The resulting odor was so intense that even Parliament could not function normally. MPs soaked their curtains in lime water to block the stench. Some suggested temporarily relocating the capital. Ultimately, this stench crisis sparked real change. Engineer Joseph Bazalgette was tasked with solving the problem. He proposed a bold plan: to build an entirely new sewer system for all of London. Not just patchwork fixes, but to build an entirely new network from scratch. This plan required laying thousands of miles of new pipes, constructing massive pumping stations, demolishing entire city blocks. It cost a fortune, but you know what's most amazing? It worked. When the sewer system was finally completed, the change was immediate. The stench began to fade. The river water started to clear. Disease rates dropped dramatically. People could finally stroll along the river banks without covering their noses. In the Victorian era, falling ill was a gamble, and the odds were always stacked against you. First, let's discuss the prevailing medical theory of the time. The miasma theory dominated the medical world. Doctors firmly believed diseases were caused by foul air, more precisely by unpleasant odors. So their treatment logic was simple: eliminate the foul odors and you cure the disease. Thus, hospitals were filled with various therapeutic smells: burning sulfur, boiling vinegar, overpowering perfumes. All of these were meant to dispel the so-called disease-causing air. The real culprits, bacteria and viruses, wouldn't be discovered for decades. Is your breathing becoming a bit rapid? Relax, this is merely history. Now, let's discuss specific treatments. If you had a fever, the doctor might perform bloodletting. They believed fever signaled an excess of blood. They would make an incision in your arm with a blade. Or worse, use leeches to suck your blood. Dozens of slimy leeches wriggling across your skin, draining your already weakened vitality. If you contracted an infection, doctors would prescribe mercury compounds. That is, quicksilver. This shiny liquid metal was considered a panacea. From syphilis to depression, from constipation to toothaches, mercury was the answer to every problem. But what the doctors didn't know was this: mercury was deadly poison. It caused brain damage, kidney failure, and a slow, agonizing death. Do you feel a chill at your fingertips? Take a deep breath and let this discomfort leave with your exhalation. But the most terrifying part is the surgery. Surgery before the widespread use of anesthesia. Imagine you need an amputation due to an infected leg wound. You're strapped to the operating table fully conscious. Orderlies held down your struggling body. The surgeon picked up a saw and began cutting through your flesh. You could hear the saw scraping against bone. You felt the excruciating pain of every inch of tissue being torn apart. Your screams echoed through the operating room, and the doctor's only advice was bite down on this piece of leather. After the surgery, the greater threat had only just begun. Infection. Doctors never washed their hands. Surgical instruments were used indiscriminately between patients. Bandages were reused repeatedly. Hospital mortality rates were shockingly high. Going to the hospital was often more dangerous than waiting to die at home. Now, feel your own complete, healthy body. Feel the sense of security modern medicine bestows. But the story isn't over. Let's discuss the most popular household medicine of the time. Opium tincture. This opium-linus laced liquid was available at any pharmacy. No prescription needed, no questions asked. Mothers used it to quiet crying infants. Workers used it to ease fatigue and pain. Housewives used it to treat menstrual cramps and anxiety. No one knew about its addictive properties. People simply discovered that the dose needed grew larger with each use. Withdrawal symptoms appeared when they stopped. The entire nation was plunged into an opium addiction crisis, and doctors were helpless. They viewed it as a moral failing, not a medical condition. Most heartbreaking was its use on children. Mrs. Winslow's soothing syrup became wildly popular. This medicine, marketed specifically for teething infants, contained opium as its primary ingredient. Countless infants fell into eternal sleep under opium's soothing embrace. Their parents believed they'd found a parenting miracle. When you think of these innocent little lives, does a weight settle upon your heart? Let that heaviness release with a deep breath. Victorian medicine was like blind men shooting in the dark. Occasionally it hit the mark, but more often it caused even greater harm. Bloodletting weakened the frail. Mercury compounds poisoned the sick. Surgery brought the injured to the brink of death. Opium made the suffering addicted. And all this unfolded under the shadow of medical ignorance. In the Victorian era, menstruation was an absolutely forbidden word. It was referred to as that time of the month, those inconvenient days, or simply hinted at as physical discomfort. This silence left women to face their struggles alone. First, the most basic question: what to use? Modern, convenient sanitary products? Forget about it. The vast majority of women used cloth strips torn from old sheets, worn minus-out chemises, folded repeatedly, into underwear if they had any. These strips were reused. Washing became a major problem. They must be scrubbed in cold water. Hot water sets the blood. The soap used is harshly alkaline, irritating the skin. Then, a hidden place must be found to dry them. They cannot be hung on communal clothes signs. That would invite strange looks and gossip. So bedroom corners, basements, attics. These hidden places hung with women's secrets. Imagine it. Those damp cloths drying slowly in the shadows, carrying a faint, lingering scent of blood. Does your nose seem to catch something? Take a deep breath. It's merely history's echo. Wealthier women fared slightly better. They could use softer, finer linen. Some could even afford expensive sanitary belts, primitive sanitary pads fastened around the waist with straps. But fundamentally, it remained a cloth system, and it required maids to wash and manage them. This meant even the most private matters unfolded under others' watchful eyes. More suffocating were the medical beliefs of the time. Doctors deemed menstruation a manifestation of hysteria. They believed women temporarily lost their sanity during their periods. The prescribed treatments were chilling. Cold baths, washing with ice minus cold water during menstruation, bloodletting, the belief that insufficient bleeding caused the pain. The most terrifying remedy was mercury. Yes, that toxic mercury. Doctors used it to treat menstrual cramps and other female ailments. Countless women endured not only period pain, but also the torment of mercury poisoning. Thinking of these ignorant harms, does your lower abdomen feel tight? Relax. Let this discomfort fade with your breath. Society's moral shackles were equally heavy. Menstruating women were advised to rest in bed. Avoid going out, socializing, even reading. because people believed mental activity worsened symptoms. Many girls were terrified at their first period, yet they had no one to confide in. Mothers remained silent, daughters faced fear alone. This silence passed down through generations, cuts deeper than any physical discomfort. It wasn't until the late 19th century that the first commercial sanitary pad appeared. But it was bulky, expensive, and difficult to use. Tampons were deemed scandalous. Proper women would never use them. The vast majority of women remained trapped in the cloth system until the mid-20th century. Now feel the freedom your body has today. Feel the convenience and invisibility of modern sanitary products. Feel the world where women's health to be openly discussed. Tonight, when you use those everyday sanitary products, remember this moment of imagination. Remember the women scrubbing cloth pads in dimly lit rooms. Remember the women deemed sick because of their periods. Remember the women struggling between mercury poisoning and menstrual pain. Then give thanks for the rights and dignity modern women enjoy. In the Victorian era, childhood was not a protected treasure. It was a perilous period to be endured as swiftly as possible. First, let's discuss the odds of survival. Of 5 children, perhaps only 3 would live to see their 5th birthday. Cholera, typhoid, diphtheria, tuberculosis. These diseases swept through slums like reapers. A minor wound infected, a common bout of diarrhea, could snatch away a young life. Does your heart tighten just a little? Take a deep breath. This is merely history's echo. Now, consider where they played. No clean parks, no safe playgrounds. Only streets spoiled with garbage, gutters flowing with sewage. Children's toys might be rotting animal carcasses. Their play areas bordered open cesspools. Little girls clinging to rag dolls, stuffed with straw teeming with bacteria. Little boys kicked deflated pig bladders as soccer balls, racing across cobblestone paths littered with horse dung. Do your fingers yearn to intervene? Relax, these are merely images from the past. More brutal is the fate of child laborers. A 6-year-old child might already be working in a factory, crawling beneath looms, untangling knotted threads, working 16 hours a day, breathing cotton dust. Fingers crushed by machinery is commonplace. Or crouching in pitch-black coal mines, dragging coal carts like puppies through low tunnels, never able to stand tall, never washing the coal dust from their lungs. A 7-year-old girl might already be a little mother, carrying a smaller infant on her back, selling matches on the street. If she doesn't sell them all in a day, she'll be beaten when she gets home. Does your throat feel tight? Let this emotion release slowly. Children from wealthy families seemed fortunate, but they were not. Their waists were laced so tightly they could barely breathe. They wore heavy formal gowns indistinguishable from those of adults. They drank soothing syrup laced with opium. Their childhood innocence is stolen too soon by the shackles of etiquette, and they to face the threat of disease. Typhoid does not hesitate at silk sheets. Diphtheria does not distinguish between the throats of the rich and poor. Education was a luxury for most children. Poor children worked to support their families. Girls learned how to become ladies. Boys memorized tedious classical texts. Corporal punishment was the only accepted form of discipline. Palms reddened by rulers, bottoms swollen by canes. All for your own good. Yet remarkably, children still found joy. Sailing paper boats in sewage ditches, drawing on walls with coal dust, dancing around street performers' barrel organs, sharing a stolen apple. These tiny pleasures, like flowers blooming in rock crevices, persisted stubbornly. In the Victorian era, every meal was an adventure. First, let's discuss a world without refrigerators. Milk would spoil within hours. Meat began rotting immediately after slaughter. Vegetables would quickly decay without proper preservation. Is your stomach already churning? Take a deep breath. This is merely history's echo. Faced with perishable food, people creatively sought preservation methods. Meat was salted until bitterly salty. Fish was smoked until filled with carcinogens. Everything from vegetables to eggs was pickled in vinegar. Imagine a vinegar minus soaked feast: pickled cabbage, pickled onions, pickled eggs. Even meat was soaked in vinegar for weeks. Are your taste buds protesting? Relax, these are merely flavors of the past. But the real danger came from unscrupulous merchants' creativity. They diluted milk with sewage to make it appear more abundant. They mixed crushed leaves into tea to increase weight. They added almond lime to bread to whiten its color. Even more terrifying were the candies. Green candies are dyed with copper. Red candies are colored with lead. Yellow candies are speckled with chromium. All these toxic substances find their way into children's mouths. Does your throat feel a sudden burning sensation? Let this discomfort slowly fade away. Street vendor food proved a deadly temptation. Meat pies baked for hours under the scorching sun. Sausages crawling with flies. Mystery pies made from unidentified meats. Yet these were the only lunch options for poor laborers. They knew the risks yet had no alternative. Starve or take the risk, that was the question. The tables of the wealthy are equally fraught with peril. They feast on delicacies shipped from the colonies. Fruit that has rotted in the hold for months. Canned goods already fermenting. Spices covered in mold. A lavish dinner might include greenish ham, masked by heavy spices. Spoiled seafood, drowned in thick sauce. Moldy cheese, considered a sign of ripeness. Is your stomach churning yet? Take a deep breath and let that feeling subside. Most heartbreaking was infant nutrition. No safe formula existed. No pasteurized milk. If mothers couldn't breastfeed, babies drank diluted milk. This milk was oft uncontaminated, causing diarrhea, dehydration, and death. Countless mothers watched their children die in their arms, unaware the problem lay in that cup of nutritious milk. Food fraud was everywhere. Pepper mixed with dust, coffee laced with burnt bread crumbs, cocoa powder blended with brick dust. Even beer was diluted with water and salt. People never knew what they were really consuming. Now, let's turn our gaze to the heads of the Victorian era. Behind those towering hairstyles lay a truth that makes your scalp crawl. Gently run your fingers through your hair. Feel its freshness and freedom. Now, prepare to hear the secrets hidden beneath those coiffures. In the Victorian era, hairstyles were symbols of status and sources of suffering. First, let's discuss wigs. Those elaborate hairpieces weren't created for beauty. They were meant to conceal a filthy truth. Imagine a wig made from real human hair, possibly from dying patients, or even the heads of executed criminals. After a quick wash, it was placed atop a noble woman's head, carrying the scent of its former owner and unknown diseases. Is your scalp starting to itch? Take a deep breath, it's merely history's echo. Now, let's uncover the truth beneath the wigs. With hair left unwashed for months, lice made their homes in the real hair. They crawled through strands, laid eggs, and sucked blood. Wealthy women endured the itch rather than undo their hairstyles. For creating a coiffure took hours. Maintaining it for weeks was considered proper. Imagine swarms of lice crawling across your scalp. Do your roots feel a prickling sensation? Relax, it's merely a phantom of the past. Even more terrifying were the hair-setting agents. No hairspray, no mousse. They fixed their styles with sugar syrup. Melted cane sugar was meticulously brushed through every strand. At warm bowls, the syrup began to melt, drawing flies and other insects. In sleep, and scrawled along the hair. Does your nose catch that cloying, rotten scent? Let this discomfort fade away. Poor girls suffered too. They smeared lard on their hair, trying to keep it shiny. This fat turned rancid and stank in summer. In winter, it froze into chunks. Their scalps were perpetually greasy, perpetually itchy, yet they still labored 12 hours in factories. Does your hair feel unusually heavy? Take a deep breath and let this sensation calm. Most heartbreaking are the maids. They rise at 4 to style their mistresses and almost hairdos. First, they scrape away androphene dead lice with combs. Then Ray minus shape the coiffure with sugar water. Finally, they adorn it with feathers, jewels, even miniature sculptures. The entire process takes 2 or 3 hours. Yet their own hair remains perpetually greasy and tangled. The weight of wigs was equally dreadful. A full wig could weigh up to 3 pounds, equivalent to balancing a sack of flour atop your head. All day long, neck pain became a common ailment among the ladies. Do you feel the strain on your cervical spine? Rotate your neck to release this tension. The hairstyles brought more than physical pain. They also caused social awkwardness. In crowded ballrooms, towering coiffures might knock down chandeliers. In cramped carriages, women had to kneel on the floor to ride. Even special open carriages designed for high hairstyles appeared. Thinking of these absurd scenes, does a wry smile touch your lips? Relax, it's just history's sense of humor. Yet even in such constraints, women discovered beauty's possibilities. They wove ribbons through their hairstyles, adorned buns with blooms, crafted infinite beauty from finite means. This devotion to beauty is truly moving. In the Victorian era, food was a race against time, a race almost destined to be lost. First, let's look at that piece of meat hanging in the kitchen. Pork slaughtered just yesterday has already begun to discolor today. In the warm air, decay quietly sets in. Does your nose seem to catch a whiff of something? Take a deep breath, it's merely history's echo. Faced with perishable food, people devised 3 kinds of magic: salt, smoke, and vinegar. The first magic, salt curing. Imagine burying a whole piece of meat in a mound of salt. Let the salt draw out every drop of moisture, until the flesh becomes as hard as wood. Such meat could last for months. But the cost bitterly salty, hard enough to chip teeth. Does your tongue already feel parched? Relax, it's just the taste of days gone by. The second magic, smoking. Hang the meat in a special smokehouse. Let the wood smoke cure it day and night. For days, even weeks, until the meat turns deep brown, saturated with smoky bitterness. Such meat won't spoil quickly, but every bite damages your health. Does your throat feel a slight burn? Let this discomfort fade away slowly. The third magic, pickling. Submerge every conceivable food in vinegar. Cabbage, onions, eggs, even meat. Soak them in acid for weeks or months. All foods take on a pungent sourness. All textures become soft and mushy. Are your taste buds protesting? Take a deep breath, this is merely the flavor of the past. But these 3 magics are not infallible. Meat turning green, sprinkle more spices. Milk curdling, make cheese. Bread moldy, cut off the moldy part and keep eating. People were forced to develop stomachs of steel, because not eating meant starving to death. Is your stomach churning? Feel this discomfort, then release it. What's more terrifying is that people couldn't even tell what was safe. No expiration dates, no health inspections. A can of spoiled food might hide botulism. A piece of moldy cheese could contain aflatoxins. But people back then knew nothing of this. They blamed the air, blamed their luck. They just didn't know the problem lay in the food itself. The poor faced even greater hardship. They couldn't afford fresh meat or vegetables. They had to buy near spoiled food from secondary markets. Meat that had turned sticky, vegetables beginning to rot. But they had no other choice. Think of these desperate choices. Does your heart feel heavy? Let this heaviness leave with your exhalation. The tables of the wealthy were equally fraught with danger. Their delicacies imported from the colonies. Fruit that had been stowed in ship holds for months. Mold covered spices. Cheese crawling with maggots. All of this was considered refined cuisine. Does your stomach tighten at the thought? Relax, these are merely echoes of history. Most heartbreaking was infant nutrition. No safe formula. No pasteurized milk. If mothers couldn't nurse, babies drank diluted milk, often contaminated milk, sending countless infants to their deaths in agony. In the Victorian era, milk was white death. First, let's examine milk's origins. These cows grazed in city backyards, feeding on brewery slops, breathing factory soot, their udders smeared with dung, milking hands caked in grime. Do your lips begin to recoil? Take a deep breath, this is merely history's lingering taste. The moment milk left the cow, contamination began. No refrigerated trucks, no pasteurization. In sweltering warehouses, milk spoiled rapidly. So vendors began processing it, adding chalk powder to sour milk, mixing syrup into watered minus down milk, worst of all diluting it with water. Raw sewage drawn straight from the Thames, carrying cholera vibrios, carrying typhoid bacilli. Is your stomach churning? Relax, these are merely shadows of the past. Now, let's follow this barrel of milk on its journey. It's carried in an open wooden barrel, bounced along sun-baked streets. Cars perched on the rim, dust floated on the surface. By the time it reached the slums, it had turned slightly sour. But hungry children waited. Is your palm breaking out in cold sweat? Let this tension slowly release. Most heartbreaking was feeding the infants. Mothers without breast milk have no choice. They must feed their newborns this deadly liquid. They don't know each sip is a gamble with life. Cholera festers in the infant's stomach. Diarrhea, dehydration slowly cooling in their mother's arms. Think of these innocent little lives. Does your arm yearn to embrace something? Take a deep breath, this heartache must be felt. Children from wealthy families couldn't escape either. Their milk came from dedicated cows. Yet it remained unpasteurized, unrefrigerated. Typhoid bacteria make no distinction between rich and poor. Tuberculosis bacteria choose no master. That summer, infants died daily. People blamed the air, blamed fate. None suspected the problem lay in that cup of white liquid. Milk scrimes didn't stop there. To mask the taste of spoilage, vendors added formaldehyde and borax. These preservatives were equally deadly, yet they made the milk appear fresh. Does your throat feel like it's burning? Relax, this is merely history's ache. The turning point came in 1858. A doctor finally uncovered the truth. He traced cholera outbreaks back to a specific dairy. But no one believed him then. People clung to the miasma theory. They believed disease came from the air, not food, until Pasteur invented pasteurization, until governments began regulating milk quality. Countless infants had already died needlessly. Thinking of these preventable deaths, do your eyes feel moist? Let this emotion flow naturally. In the Victorian era, bread was the pillar of life, and a deadly gamble. First, let's examine the source of the flour. This flour might be laced with lime, mixed with alum, simply to make it whiter, fluffier. Does your tongue... Take a deep breath, this is merely dust from history. But the most terrifying part wasn't even that. It was sawdust. Yes, sawdust from carpenters' workshops, carefully ground and mixed into the flour. To wood weight and cut costs. Imagine every bite of bread, containing tiny wood shavings. Do your teeth feel the grit? Relax, it's merely the taste of days gone by. The poor knew the bread was tainted, yet they had no choice. They couldn't afford fresh meat or vegetables. Bread was the only food that filled their bellies, so they swallowed the adulterated loaves, allowing wood shavings to scratch their throats, lime to burn their stomachs. Does your throat feel a stinging pain? Let this discomfort slowly fade. Worse still is street miners sold bread, exposed to dust, swarming with flies, coated in coal dust. Poor laborers buy it hastily, wash it down with contaminated milk, consume their sole meal of the day. Does your stomach begin to clench? Breathe deeply, it's merely history's echo. The hygiene in bakeries was equally appalling. Dough was kneaded in filthy wooden troughs. Workers' sweat dripped into the dough. Rats scurried across flour sacks. And all this was baked into delicious bread. Does your nose detect the stench of decay? Relax, it's merely a shadow of the past. The bread of the wealthy seemed safe, but their white bread contained alum as well. Their delicate pastries used leaded icing. In that era, no one was entirely spared. Only the suffering of the poor was deeper. Most heartbreaking were the children. They grew up eating bread laced with sawdust. Malnourished, their bellies swollen and aching, yet unaware of the cause. Parents watched their children's gaunt faces. They could only buy more bread, unaware they were worsening the harm. Thinking of these innocent little lives, does your heart tighten? Feel this pain, then release it. The turning point came in the mid-19th century. Some doctors began uncovering the truth. They dissected the bodies of the poor. They found wood shavings and sand in their stomachs. But bakers united in denial. Politicians chose to look the other way, because the lives of the poor held no value. Now let us push open the doors to a Victorian-era restaurant for the wealthy. Uncover the shocking truth behind those exquisite dishes. First, recall the last delicious meal you enjoyed. Feel that sense of safety and satisfaction. Now, prepare to enter a completely different culinary world. In the Victorian era, the tables of the wealthy were stages for display. They were also dangerous testing grounds. First, let's examine that famous meat. These mysterious meat sauces packed in iron tins, stored in ship holds for months, even years. No one knew what kind of meat was inside. Does your curiosity carry a hint of unease? Take a deep breath. This is merely the fog of history. The moment the can was opened often brought a surprise. It might be spoiled beef or stale fish, yet the wealthy flocked to it, for they sought novelty, uniqueness. Is your stomach beginning to twitch slightly? Relax, this is just an adventure from days gone by. Now, let's turn to the cheese counter. Here lies the most extravagant delicacy of the era, cheese with live maggots. Yes, literally live maggots. Cosa Mazzari's Sardinia's delicacy. The cheese crawls with live fly larvae. Is your skin starting to tingle? Let this sensation wash over you. The wealthy used silver cutlery to elegantly spear the cheese. They'd pop it into their mouths, maggots wriggling and all. They believed it was the ultimate delicacy, a symbol of status and daring. Are your taste buds protesting fiercely? Take a deep breath. This is just the madness of the past. Even more unbelievable is beetle soup. Rich broth simmered with real beetles, rippling in delicate porcelain bowls. The wealthy sip it slowly, praising its flavor, completely oblivious to beetle legs stuck between their teeth. Does your throat feel a sudden lump? Relax, it's just history's joke. The Victorian elite's obsession with bizarre cuisine stemmed from flaunting colonial conquests. The more exotic the delicacy, the greater the display of wealth and status. Thus the dining table became an adventure playground. Is your brow furrowed in disbelief? Unfurrow it, this is merely vanity of the past. But the dangers of these delicacies far exceeded imagination. Live maggots could carry pathogens. Spoiled canned goods might harbor botulinum toxin. Beetles could contain toxins. While the wealthy pursued novelty, they gambled with their very lives. Does a chill run down your spine? Let this caution remind you to cherish the present. The greatest irony is that these expensive delicacies often pose greater risks than the simple fare of the poor. While the impoverished struggle for clean bread, the affluent indulge in potentially lethal gourmet treats. Contemplating this absurd contrast, does a complex mix of emotions well up within you? Feel this complexity, then let it go. Now, let us return to the starting point of change. Explore how hygiene concepts were completely reshaped. First, pick up a bar of soap and feel its smoothness. Recall all your daily habits related to cleanliness. Now, prepare to understand the origin of it all. In the early Victorian era, soap was a luxury, made from animal fats and wood ash, coarse in texture, pungent in smell. The poor couldn't afford it, and the wealthy rarely used it. Do your palms still remember that roughness? Take a deep breath, it's merely a trace of history. The turning point came with innovations in manufacturing. The invention of the continuous saponification reactor transformed soap production from workshops to factories. Glycerin was separated, softening the texture. Palm oil improved both scent and consistency. Suddenly, soap was no longer expensive. Do your fingertips feel this progress? Relax, it's merely a gift from the Industrial Revolution. But technological progress requires scientific guidance. Pasteur proved bacteria existed with his swan-neck flask experiment. Koch established the germ theory of disease. These discoveries lit up the night sky like lightning. They illuminated the true connection between hygiene and illness. Did your thoughts tremble at this revelation? Feel the impact of this new understanding. Doctors began to grasp the gravity of the problem. Semmelweis discovered that washing hands before delivery reduced puerperal fever. Lister pioneered surgical sterilization techniques. These discoveries saved countless lives. Yet they also faced immense resistance. Do you hear the voices of dissent ringing in your ears? Let these distractions fade away with the wind. Meanwhile, another force was gathering momentum. The advertising industry began to flourish. Soap manufacturers keenly sensed the business opportunity. They started weaving tales of cleanliness and virtue, packaging soap as a symbol of civilization and progress. Are your eyes drawn to these advertisements? Take a deep breath. This was merely the beginning of marketing. Palmer Soap's slogan proclaimed, "Cleanliness is next to God" lines. They tightly link hygiene with morality. Pear Soap claimed to purify the race. These ads were steeped in racism, yet they profoundly shaped public perception. Does this make you uncomfortable? Face this complexity of history head-on. Most famously, Lux Soap's marketing. They hired celebrity endorsers, linking cleanliness to charm and success, transforming soap from a necessity into a vessel for dreams. Have your dreams ever been shaped by advertising? Consider this subtle question. Schools became the front line of hygiene education. Children learned proper hand-washing techniques. They brought this knowledge home, changing the entire family's hygiene habits. Do you recall similar memories from your childhood? Give thanks to those unsung educators. Public health campaigns swept the nation. Posters demonstrated proper hygiene practices. Lectures promoted disease prevention knowledge. Soap companies sponsored diverse sanitation initiatives, benefiting the public while expanding their market. Does your community still uphold these traditions? Appreciate this wisdom of mutual benefit. Fuller Brush Company pioneered the direct sales model. Sales representatives demonstrated cleaning methods door-to-door. They were not really merchants, but hygiene educators, bringing new lifestyles into every household. Did such visitors ever come to your door? Recognize their historical role. These three drivers mutually reinforced each other. Science provided the theoretical foundation for hygiene. Technology made cleaning products affordable and effective. Advertising transformed attitudes and behaviors. Their combined force finally propelled the hygiene revolution. Has your life also benefited from this? Appreciate the power of this transformation. Now, let us turn our gaze to the forgotten heroes of history, the women who labored quietly in the sanitation reform movement. First, recall the women who maintained cleanliness in your own household. Mothers, grandmothers, wives, or perhaps yourself. Now, prepare to meet their pioneers. In the Victorian era, women were confined to the private sphere. Yet it was precisely on this restricted stage that they launched a silent revolution. First, step into the parlor of a middle-class home. This space, seemingly disconnected from public health, became a breeding ground for reformist ideas. Here, women read medical journals. They debated the latest theories on hygiene. They might not have entered medical schools, but through salons and reading circles, they disseminated scientific knowledge to every household. Do you hear their discussions echoing? Listen, it is the whisper of wisdom. While male doctors debated endlessly in Parliament, women had already begun to act. They organized the first Women's Sanitary Association, traveling from household to household in their communities. They taught proper cleaning methods, demonstrated how to sterilize baby bottles. Can you smell the scent of disinfectant? Breathe it in. This is the scent of hope. Most astonishing was their work in the slums. These elegant ladies lifted their skirts, venturing into the filthiest alleys. Unafraid of foul odors or danger, they visited impoverished families door to door, documenting sanitary conditions and teaching basic hygiene. Do you feel the pebbled path beneath your feet? Stand firm. These are steps of unwavering resolve. Florence Nightingale was not merely a nurse. She was the standard bearer of sanitation reform. During the Crimean War, she discovered that clean bandages saved more lives than medicine. This revelation transformed the entire medical field. Do you feel the purity of bandages in your hands? Grip them tightly. This is the weight of life. Even less known is Josephine Butler. She risked societal condemnation to secure medical rights for prostitutes. She exposed the truth of venereal disease transmission. and champion public health legislation. Does your heart ache for her? Feel this courage. In Liverpool, an ordinary housewife noticed abnormally high infant mortality in slums. Defying ridicule, she researched milk sterilization methods in her kitchen, ultimately inventing the simple pasteurization method, saving countless young lives. Does the taste of safe milk linger on your lips? Be grateful. This is the power of a mother's love. These women faced not only health issues, but also society's prejudices. Doctors mocked their lack of medical training. Politicians accused them of overstepping their bounds. Husbands forbade them from appearing in public. Yet they persisted. Do you hear the voices of doubt echoing in your ears? Shut out the noise and listen only to truth. They spoke with data, proved with facts. In Manchester, women reformers mapped disease patterns, clearly showing slums had the highest mortality rates. This discovery forced the government to improve sanitation. Do you see those mottled laps before your eyes? Look closely. This is the power of truth. Most moving is the mothers' alliance. They vowed at their children's graves never to let other mothers endure the same agony. So they united, demanding clean drinking water, demanding safe food, demanding sanitary living conditions. Do you feel this grief and resolve in your chest? Embrace it. This is the radiance of motherhood. In schools, female teachers toil quietly. They teach children how to wash their hands, check their personal hygiene, prepare clean clothes for impoverished students. These small acts transform the habits of an entire generation. Do you remember such a teacher? Cherish them. These are the seeds of education. Women of wealth leverage their resources and influence, funding hygiene research, establishing public bathhouses, donating cleaning supplies. They may never set foot in the slums themselves, yet they doctor reform through other means. Do you feel this gift in your hands? Cherish it. This is responsibility in action. Working-class women fought their own battles. They organized cooperatives, bought cheap soap collectively, took turns caring for sick children, shared cleaning techniques, seeking hope in the cracks of survival. Have your fingertips touched the warmth of cooperation? Pass it on. This is the power of solidarity. These women's work often went unnoticed. History books record the names of male reformers, but turn the pages of archives. In the corners of data, in the gaps of reports, their contributions are everywhere. Do your eyes see these forgotten signatures? Remember, this is history's truth. They invented simple, practical sanitation devices, improved household disinfection methods, established infant care standards. These innovations seemed small, yet they saved millions of lives. Do these inventions still echo in your daily life? Recognize this. It is the legacy of wisdom. In the legislative arena, women wielded influence too. Though unable to vote directly, through petitions, correspondence, and lobbying, they shaped public health legislation, ensuring laws addressed family needs, protecting women and children's rights. Do you hear the debates echoing in the halls of Parliament? Listen closely. This is the voice of democracy. Most moving is the cross-classical aberration. Ladies set aside their status. Factory women bravely raised their voices. They realized disease knows no wealth. Health concerns everyone. So they joined hands, driving reform. Does this resonance stir your heart? Cherish it. This is the power of consensus. Now, let us step into a mid-19th century laboratory. Witness the dawn that illuminated civilization's darkest corners. First, feel the security modern medicine offers. Recall the last time you took medicine with peace of mind. Now prepare to return to an era when disease remained a mystery. Before Pasteur, the world was a vast enigma. Doctors wore blood-stained surgical gowns. They walked directly from dissection rooms to delivery wards. They greeted new life carrying the scent of death. They were accustomed to this. Does your nose detect that mingled odor? Breathe deeply. It's merely the mist of history. Back then, miasma theory dominated medicine. People believed disease came from foul air, from swamp mists, from rotting matter. So they burned incense and sprayed perfumes, attempting to dispel disease with fragrance. Do you recall this futility? Relax, it was merely the price of ignorance. In this dark age, alchemist was about to change everything. Louis Pasteur, originally a scholar of crystals, accidentally drawn to life's mysteries, he began exploring the truth of fermentation. Has your curiosity been ignited? Follow along, this is science's call. Let us enter that humble laboratory in Lille. Pasteur observes the fermentation of beetroot juice. He discovers distinct fermentation products, corresponding to different microorganisms. This discovery shines like the first dawn. Do you see those dancing microbes in your eyes? Gaze upon them, this is truth's budding. But science's path is never smooth. Authoritative scholars then clung to spontaneous generation. Life could spontaneously arise from non-minus living matter. Maggots in rotten meat, mosquitoes in stagnant water. These phenomena seem to validate the theory. Does your reason question this? Reflect, this is the limitation of perception. Pasteur devised a simple experiment. That famous 1- neck flask. Boiling broth sterilized it, the curved neck prevented microbes from entering. The result was clear, the broth remained unspoiled. Life can only come from life. Does your logic yield to this? Appreciate this, the aesthetics of experimentation. Yet the conservative Academy of Sciences refused to accept it. They questioned Pasteur's methods, mocked his conclusions, even slandered his character. The scientific revolution met stubborn resistance. Do you hear those voices of dissent? Shut it out, this is the noise of progress. Meanwhile, in the hospitals, mothers were dying in droves. Childbed fever haunted the maternity wards like a spectre. Doctors were helpless. Do you feel the terror in those mothers' hearts? Feel it, this is history's agony. At Vienna General Hospital, a physician named Semmelweis uncovered the truth. He demanded doctors wash their hands with bleach before deliveries. The rate of puerperal fever plummeted immediately. But this discovery was rejected by the medical establishment. Semmelweis died alone in an asylum. Does your soul sigh for him? Remember this, the tragedy of a pioneer. Pasteur's research deepened. He studied silkworm diseases, saving the silk industry from collapse. He invented pasteurization, saving the wine and dairy industries. But these were only the beginning. Do traces of these inventions remain in your life? Discover, this is science's gift. Now let us return to the hospital operating room. There Lister was putting Pasteur's theories into practice. He disinfected surgical instruments with carbolic acid. He covered wounds with sterilized gauze. Surgical mortality rates dropped dramatically. Does your safety benefit from this discovery? Be grateful, this is the progress of medicine. But the greatest challenge lay ahead. Anthrax was ravaging rural France. Entire flocks of sheep collapsed in pastures. Farmers were plunged into despair. Do you see those fallen livestock before your eyes? Observe, this is the cruelty of disease. Pasteur began researching an anthrax vaccine. He cultivated weakened anthrax bacilli in his laboratory. After countless failures, he finally discovered a safe vaccine. Did your hopes rise and fall with his experiments? Feel, this is the power of persistence. The 1881 Provence experiment, a milestone in scientific history. 40-8 sheep, 20- for vaccinated, 20- for unvaccinated, all exposed to potent anthrax spores. The result stunned the world. The vaccinated group survived entirely, while the unvaccinated group perished completely. Did this outcome strengthen your conviction? Hold fast to this, the power of science. Yet challenges followed relentlessly. Rabies, that most dreaded disease. Long incubation period, 100% fatality rate. Pasteur risked cultivating the virus in rabbit's spinal cord, developing the rabies vaccine. Is your courage inspired by his daring? Hold fast, this is the spirit of humanity. In 1885, 9-year old Joseph Meister was bitten by a rabid dog. His mother brought him to Pasteur. Operating on the edge of legality, in an ethical quandary, Pasteur decided to use a vaccine not yet fully validated. The child's life was saved. Did your breath catch at this? Rest assured, this is life's triumph. The germ theory began transforming the world. Doctors finally started washing their hands. Hospitals began sterilizing. Public health started improving. As your life becomes safer because of this. Cherish it. This is the progress of civilization. But science's path remained winding. The truth about cholera wasn't confirmed until 1892. The tuberculosis bacillus wasn't discovered until 1882. The diphtheria antitoxin didn't arrive until 1890. Before that, how many lives were lost in vain? Have you ever calculated this cost in your heart? Remember this, it is the price of progress. Pasteur's legacy extends far beyond this. He founded the Pasteur Institute. He nurtured generations of scientists. He kept the flame of scientific exploration alive. Does your era still benefit from this legacy? Pass it on. This is the torch of knowledge. Now, let us return to the present. Observe this world transformed by germ theory. Vaccines protect our children. Antibiotics treat infections. Disinfection has become part of daily life. Has your life become safer because of this? Feel the weight of this safety. But new challenges have emerged. Antibiotic resistance is spreading. New infectious diseases keep emerging. Climate change is altering disease patterns. Has your vigilance been awakened? Stay alert, this is our contemporary responsibility. Pasteur left us not only knowledge, but a spirit, the spirit of questioning authority, the spirit of experimental verification, the spirit of upholding truth. Does this spirit dwell within you? Cultivate it. This is the essence of science. Now, look at your own hands. These hands, perhaps freshly washed. How much scientific dedication do they bear? How many lives were sacrificed for them? Tonight, as you sleep soundly, remember this moment of reflection. Remember the tireless elder in the laboratory. Remember the pioneers who sacrificed for truth. Remember the warriors who validated theories with their lives. Then to this world illuminated by science, offer your deepest gratitude. Now, let us gently close this book of history. From that era of hardship and resilience, return to this present filled with light. Take one deep breath. Feel the air flowing through your lungs. This is the breath of freedom, the breath of safety. We have just completed a journey spanning a century. We have witnessed humanity's arduous trek from darkness to light. Now, look around the space you occupy. Observe all the things you take for granted. Each one is a miracle they could only dream of. Let us compile a list of gratitude for every ordinary miracle you possess in this moment. Be thankful for the warm water flowing from your fingertips. In an era when water was seen as an enemy, this was unimaginable magic. Be thankful for the bed beneath you. Be thankful for the clean sheets, the soft pillow. In the Victorian era, these were luxuries among luxuries. Be thankful for the switch beside you. One gentle press, and light floods the room. In that era, darkness was night's sole ruler. Be thankful for your teeth. Thank you for that soft toothbrush, the cool toothpaste. In an era when celery cleaned teeth. This is an incredible blessing. Thank you for every strand of hair on your head. Thank you for those gentle shampoos, allowing you to stay fresh at all times. In an era when eggs washed hair, this was a distant dream. Thank you for your underwear. Thank you for that soft, clean comfort against your skin. In an era when most had none to wear, this comfort was unattainable. Special thanks to that room. The room you never mention, yet is utterly vital. Thank you for that clean bathroom. Thank you for that flush minus of Linus Dutch minus of minus of minus a minus button toilet. In the days of communal latrines, this is the greatest miracle of civilization. Thank you for your kitchen. Thank you for that refrigerator that keeps food fresh. Thank you for those clear expiration dates. In the days when food could spoil at any moment, this is the most reliable safeguard of life. Thank you for the healthcare you enjoy. Thank you for painless treatments, unsafe medications. In the days of bloodletting and mercury cures, this is the most miraculous resurrection. Now give special thanks to those nameless individuals. Thank you to the pioneers groping in the dark, those brave scientists, those unyielding reformers, those ordinary people who worked in obscurity. It was their wisdom and courage that gradually propelled the wheel of history forward, allowing us to stand on their shoulders. to enjoy conveniences they could only dream of. Yet gratitude alone is insufficient. We must carry on their legacy, carry on their courage, carry on their perseverance, carry on their belief in a better world. Look out at this world they could never have imagined, this world filled with light, this world where you breathe freely, this world where you eat with peace of mind, this world where you live with dignity. Every single thing you take for granted is a gift bought with their blood-earned tears. Every time you take something for granted, it is the fruit of humanity's progress. Yet our work remains unfinished. In many corners of the globe, people still drink unclean water. They still live without sanitation. Children still die from preventable diseases. The spectre of the Victorian era still haunts certain places. So after giving thanks, let us take up the torch, become the new reformers, continue the fight in new realms, for those still in darkness, for our children and grandchildren. Let the reach of light keep expanding, until every corner is illuminated. Now, make a promise, a simple promise. Cherish all you possess. Waste not a single drop of clean water. Take not for granted a single meal of safe food. Honor every breath of good health. And when within your power, to make the world a better place, lend your strength. Like those pioneers a century past, through small acts, they propelled great change. Tonight, as you drift off to sleep, carry with you this profound gratitude. Gratitude for those pioneers who groped in darkness. Gratitude for those souls who persevered through hardship. It is because of them that we can meet in this better era. At the same time, carry with you this responsibility. Know that our generation too has a mission to fulfill. We too must create a better world for the next generation. Now let this gratitude and responsibility accompany you into sweet and peaceful dreams. Good night, my dear listeners. May your heart always hold gratitude. May your hands always grasp hope. May we all become that beacon in the river of history, illuminating the future. This series concludes here, but the story of transformation never ends. Human progress never ceases. Let us, each in our own place, continue writing this great story. Goodbye, and sweet dreams, filled with screams beyond your wildest imagination. So before you relax, take a moment to like and subscribe. Now let's embark on tonight's journey together. The tale begins with a mistake, a stroke of bad luck, or simply being in the wrong place when the wrong ship docked. You were likely already a sailor, traveling the merchant routes, or hauling cargo across the Caribbean. Life wasn't perfect, but at least it had a rhythm. Yet shadows suddenly loom on the horizon, black flags unfurling, or a rickety ship racing like a possessed spectre. Before cannonballs pound the hull, you scarcely have time for panic. Splinters fly like razors. The captain screams. Pirates swarm aboard. They show no mercy, swinging rusted cutlasses amid curses, pistols spewing the metallic stench of gunpowder. You offer no resistance. Most don't. You toss your dagger, raise your hands, beg for mercy. Perhaps they'll spare you. Perhaps you'll slip through the cracks. In these waters, slip through means something entirely different. The luckiest were forcibly conscripted, dragged onto pirate ships, stuffed into the hold. The crew was told, say goodbye to your old lives. You've just been recruited into the world's most brutal trade. They stripped you naked, your clothes now belong to the pirates. You were handed a stiff minus-collared shirt, a pair of barely minus-fitting trousers, and a pair of boots that creaked with every step. Now you were a crew member. Your primary duties were scrubbing decks and obeying orders. Never question the man wearing the largest hat. Some begged to join, yearning for gold and freedom. You had no choice. The shock of the raid hadn't yet subsided, when a heavy blow landed on your back. Someone called you a greenhorn, hardly a compliment. Your first night aboard was agony. The ship rocked endlessly, as if trying to fling you into the sea. You slept in a cabin reeking of stale bread and sweat. Beneath you, damp planks. Nearby, someone snored thunderously, like a death rattle. Your stomach growled. But you couldn't find the galley because there was no galley. only a fellow cold biscuit. Boils scraps of animal into a broth reeking of failure. You gradually realize this isn't adventure, but a trap. Many pirates throughout history were forced into slavery this way, becoming pirates after their ships were seized. Captain Kidd's crew was a famous example. Many claimed they were coerced into joining. Once aboard, refusal was never an option. Refusal often meant being thrown overboard, or meeting a far worse fate, let alone submitting a polite resignation letter. A pirate's life was either a lifelong commitment, or an end by sharper blades. Pirate ships naturally had their own rules once formally enlisted. You had to fulfill your duties diligently. Take a deep breath. Let your body fully relax. We're heading back to 1852 London, and officially enter the Victorian bathroom, or rather enter an era where bathrooms barely existed. Now, picture your daily ritual of a hot shower, the warm water gliding over your skin, the steam and fragrance filling the air. Now forget all of that. In Victorian London, water wasn't a friend, it was an enemy. They genuinely believed excessive contact with water posed dangers. They thought hot water opened pores, allowing harmful vapors to enter the body. They feared cold water would shock the nerves, causing convulsions or even death. This fear ran deep in everyone's psyche.